Hello, everybody. Welcome. Here we go. It's that time again. Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. Streaming at WMNHradio.org and on the Facebook on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Speaking of the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page, I am having an issue. It looks like there's people in there, but I can't see who's in there. It shows we have live viewers. Facebook is being extraordinarily wonky. And I can't tell. The only person I see, the only person whose name I can actually see in the Facebook live chat is Tony D, who was asking, what song is this? The opening song that was Sick Boy by Chainsmokers. But I can't see who's in the Facebook live chat. So there's a bunch of people in there. Unless you, well, you probably are typing things because we typically have a very active. Oh, all of a sudden people are appearing. Okay. I see Jenny is in there. Jenny says shalom, and DJ Midas is in there and says we are here. For some reason, yeah, I don't know why. So I can see you on one screen, but I can't see you on the screen that I usually see you all on. Let me just try this and see if this works. Oh, we may have fixed it. Okay. It looks different. Let me see what happens if I click that. We might be okay. I mean, not that, we wouldn't be okay. We, just the show would just go on. But I do like to be able to see what everybody's saying. Oh, that's not going to work. Okay, well, it looks a little different than I'm used to, but that's all right. I can see everybody now. Huh. And let me just make sure that's like that. Why is that like that? Is there anything I can do about that? Probably not. Sorry, everybody. This will only... Okay. All right. No, that's good enough. It's just weird that it's behaving that way. But okay, so here we are. Anyway, hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Welcome. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live. Oh, there's Tom Blanchard in the Facebook live chat. Tom says, I thought it was my fault. It is not your fault, sir. Technology will fail us at times, but what would we do without it? Welcome, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are, of course, live on this Tuesday, February 16, 2021. The number to call, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Of course, we are also... you can also text us at 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton. You can send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. And, of course, you can always interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. And it looks like I will be able to see your comments after all. They're just, everything is smaller than usual on the browser. Very strange. Very, very strange. But you know how Facebook is. What did Christian Lacoste call him yesterday? Mark Zuckerberger or something, which is very disrespectful. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, we don't want to offend these people. We don't want to be deplatformed. What a terrible thing that would be. Boy, that whole subject caused an argument yesterday when Dave Ridley called in. But anyway, but the best thing to do, of course, give us a call, 603-250-6007 on this Tuesday afternoon. Of course, I do want to remind you all, too, that we are proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street, right across the street. Don't go there today because Monday and Tuesday is their weekend, but they will be open tomorrow. And, of course, they have delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. They have wine. It's a great place. Great service, great food, a great family that owns and operates it. And most importantly to me and to so many of us is they do everything very safely there. The staff is masked at all times, and the tables are nice and spread apart, and they clean, they sanitize, they disinfect, all of that. So very important. They take COVID very seriously, which is one of the many reasons why we're so honored and privileged to have them as a sponsor here. Of course, we have many great sponsors at WMNH 95.3, Queen City Cabinetry, our friend Mike Pelopita, who is very supportive of this show and the morning show and the station. Mike might even be in the Facebook live chat already for all I know, and I just can't see him because I feel like there's still, I know for a fact there's more going on than I can actually see on my end in the chat room. But anyway, we'll muddle through it. Boy, it's being a little wonky. Anyway, what can you do? Let's see. I think, but I did want to mention our other sponsors, of course, Queen City Cabinetry, the Regency Connection and or Collection. I always say Connection. I always do that. It's the Regency Collection. And, of course, CGI Business Solutions, the OG of WMNH sponsors. They were here before I was here at the station, all the way back from the beginning. Angela Philbrook is in the chat room. Hello, Angela. Let's see. Speaking of people who call the show and interact with the show, yesterday we received a call from a new listener named Raven, and that was interesting because Raven said something that turned out to be, I almost wonder if Raven had some inside information or something. It was very interesting. We were talking about the Capitol riots and what happened, the insurrection, of course. And, how Republicans, for the most part, with a few exceptions in the Senate, voted to acquit. And then there was Mitch McConnell, who basically got up and gave what should have been a fantastic closing argument for the prosecution. But this was only after he voted not guilty. But then, he really gave quite a blistering rebuke of Trump. But, it was the whole, but I don't think that we can constitutionally convict the president now that he's no longer president. And, we can get into all the flaws with that argument and whatnot. Mitch really, like I said yesterday, he makes having it both ways look easy. But Raven had called and was kind of speculating and putting this out there. Is it possible that that there could be a civil suit against Trump, or perhaps even a series of them? And he brought up as an example O.J. Simpson, who, by the way, in case for anyone who doesn't know, if you are wondering, O.J. Simpson has been vaccinated. He has gotten the COVID-19 vaccine, so don't worry about the juice. O.J. is all set. Apparently, he on Twitter, he posted a picture of himself getting the vaccination. So, well, he is, I think he's 71 years old, 71, 72. I wonder if he, and I was about to make a joke about his which arm and, never mind. Anyway, that would be very tasteless. And if you're a regular listener, I insist on conducting myself always in good taste. But, Raven was saying, could there be civil suits, and used OJ as an example. OJ was found not guilty of the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and I forget the other gentleman's name now. But then he was sued successfully by the family of Nicole Brown as being liable at fault for her murder. So Raven's question turned out to be quite prescient, and we'll get into that today. There has been a lawsuit filed. Hello to Miriam Banish in the Facebook live chat, and hello to whoever is on the phone. We'll take this call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Yeah, I'd like to place an order for pickup.
Well, that's fine. The delivery van is broken.
Like a large extra cheese pizza, well done.
Well done? What is this that you speak of, this well done? I've never heard of that. Apparently, I'm the only one who's never heard of that, but I've never heard of that, sir. I'm sorry.
What's up, Matt?
Oh, it's Tony D. How are you, my friend?
Good, man. So, whoever that guy was that called yesterday, first time, I guess it was the first time caller.
Raven.
Yeah.
I
think his name was?
Yes.
I mean, he brought up some interesting points, and like it seems like it's like happening today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So did you see the article? Oh, I saw it. Christian posted it, and I think Miriam or someone like that also reposted it.
Yeah.
And I just got a chance to read it. So what is going on now? What are we looking at here? We're looking at legality outside of the Senate. We're looking at just as legal terms, I guess, for a normal citizen now.
Yeah, I mean they're doing, it's kind of like like what Raven suggested, just because you weren't able to convict someone criminally. Not that the proceeding in the Senate was a criminal case. I mean, it's a different thing. But, the example of OJ being acquitted criminally, but then they were able to file a civil suit. Well, now, and I have it here, Business Insider reports the NAACP is suing Trump and Giuliani and two extremist groups for inciting the violent Capitol riot. So effectively, they're suing for damages. Now, this is a little bit different, though, than what Raven was suggesting. I think, if I understood him correctly, Raven was saying, maybe the federal government could sue or a government agency could sue Trump and others for damages and pursue it that way. But this is the NAACP. And there may be a series of lawsuits. Well, this will be fascinating to see this play out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Melt-Faced Mitch, I think he was insisting on people doing this. Now that I'm like kind of like sitting back and I keep rereading what he was saying, and then I try to comprehend what that Melt-Face was trying to say. But now I'm kind of understanding it. Like he wants to see him get in trouble outside of everything else. Like that's what it seems like, right?
That seemed to be what he was.
In English terms.
That seemed to be what it was saying, and that seemed to be how he was justifying and rationalizing his decision to vote not guilty. Was that he in a sense he seemed to be saying, "Look, I don't think we can do this constitutionally." And by the way, he was the one who made sure that Trump was no longer president when the impeachment trial, when the actual trial took place in the Senate. But he basically seemed to be saying, I don't think we can do this, so that's why I'm voting not guilty. But in my estimation, you shouldn't worry because Trump's legal problems are just beginning. That's basically how I took it, yes. And so in a sense, because Mitch McConnell, I'm sure, I would love to be rid of Trump. He wants to throw him overboard and just sail on. But like I said, too, he's kind of having it both ways.
Right. So what we're looking at right now, we're looking at this lawsuit. We're looking at the New York State lawsuit. We're looking at the Georgia lawsuit. And then what Raven was saying yesterday was also like damages from, or I think Jenny said it, I'm not sure, quote me if I'm wrong, but damages from the family member of like the fallen officer and stuff like that.
Yes.
I mean, how many lawsuits can this guy be possibly looking at when this is said and done? I mean, is this going to be the Marilyn Manson effect? You see where I'm going with this? Like, is this going to be just like everyone's going to be like, you know what? If they can do it, we can do it. And I know Giuliani's dealing with the voting machine problem, right? That's another lawsuit that's out there against Giuliani and them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how many lawsuits are we looking at right now that are just sitting on the table as of today?
There could be, it could be an avalanche. I mean, Trump is so, if I can find the article again, we might get to it. There was, I saw an article on one of the sites about that kind of adds up all of Trump's legal problems that he's running into and will be running into. And it's just so much. But yes, we might see an avalanche of lawsuits, civil suits over the Capitol riots, since obviously nothing's going to happen criminally, nor was the Senate able to do anything as far as preventing him from running again. And they may seek to bury him. And I think that Mitch McConnell would like to see that happen because, like I said, Mitch wants to be rid of Trump once and for all. And he knows, McConnell's not going to be, he just won re-election. He's good for 6 years. He's not going to be primaried. And, this may be his last term at the age of 80. I think he's 80. This might be his last term in the Senate. And even if it's not, by the time 6 years has passed, I think he's banking on, Trump will have not passed on. I don't mean that Trump will have died, but you know what I mean as far as politically.
Yeah.
Huh. So we'll see.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just what's sad is that this guy is still taking over the news more than what the president's doing good for in the country right now. And this guy is still taking over the news even out of office.
Oh yeah.
And it's very disheartening to turn on the TV and you still hear Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Trump. That's all you hear. Like yesterday, he went golfing and they had a Trump rally on the road that was leading up to the golf course, and it was Trump. Trump. It's like, dude, Biden is our president. It's time to just like why is the news so factuated with continuing to talk about the negative crap that this guy's caused? We know what he's done. I break the news when the dude is going to jail, but let's not speak about him no more and give him what he wants, and that's his publicity, because that's all he wants. He's living off of this. He loves hearing his name every day. You know what I mean?
So, of course.
It's just like let's start hearing the good about like how some of the vaccines are working, and that the case rates are starting to come down. You're starting to see them start to come down. Hospitalizations are starting to come down. You're starting to see this stuff. Why can't we talk about the good? Why do we got to continue to talk about the guy that did nothing for this? It makes no sense to me.
Well, the thing is,
you'll have the Tom Blanchards in the room. Trump. You know what? I don't care. I want to hear the good that's happening in this country right now. You know?
Yeah. Well, Tom. I mean, Tom was what makes Tom interesting to me is Tom was a Trump supporter who became disgusted pretty quickly with Trump's behavior after the election. And Tom seems to accept that, look, Biden won, and Tom's no fan of Biden, but Tom doesn't like a sore loser, which is what Trump is. Not to speak for Tom, but I think I've got that right. But the thing is, part of why Trump still looms so large in the news is he's still the most popular person in the Republican Party. And it's just interesting to see what has happened to the Republican Party. Now we've got Senator Ron Johnson's trying to spin it like the Capitol riot wasn't even that big a deal. I mean, it's just incredible. It's become the party of Trump. Trump isn't going anywhere as far as his influence in the party. It's the party of Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and QAnon and this pathetic, spineless excuse for a person, Ron Johnson, who's basically saying, the Capitol riot wasn't that big a deal. It's not like they brought in guns. It's incredible. So, it's still very much Trump's party. And by the way, I think it's probably only a matter of time. Trump is going to end up running for president in 2024. At least he'll make an announcement. So that's why we're all still talking about Trump, because Trump isn't going away unless he literally goes away, to the big house, which is possible.
Anything's possible, but do you really think he's going to go to jail? I mean, honestly, do you really think he's going to actually go to jail? He might catch a couple fines or pay all this money out, but it seems like when you have money in your pocket, you always avoid the big house. True.
It will be interesting to see what the state. See, I believe that the state of New York Attorney General's office has been building a case. And building, and they've had plenty of time over the last 4 years. And I don't think what happened. I don't think Georgia. I know Georgia is investigating him over that call and pressuring election officials and Brad Raffensperger and whatnot. I don't think any of that's going to land him in jail. I think if anything lands him in jail, it will be the state of New York if he actively committed tax fraud and other things. I think that might be what lands him in jail. I do think it's possible.
How long do you think till we see something from that?
That is hard to say. Oh, Abigail Jem points out Martha Stewart didn't avoid the big house. That's true. I mean, she went to Club Fed where they treat you real nice. But yeah, you don't always avoid.
Yeah, they still get strawberries with their oatmeal there.
Right, exactly. Well, it is Martha Stewart. We don't want anything to happen to.
I got served in a Martha Stewart bowl too while you're at it.
Right. But yeah. So, but it is true though, to your point that, if you have money and if you have money and fame and notoriety, you are certainly far less likely to pay the penalty of actual prison time than, poor people are the most likely to end up in prison for long periods of time because we've effectively criminalized poverty in this country. So they find ways to put you in prison if you're poor, especially if you're poor and you get caught with a substance that our elected lawgivers and overlords have deemed that you're not allowed to have. Well, then you're definitely screwed. So we'll see.
I was arrested in 2007 for breaking into my own home because I forgot the key to my house.
Really?
And I was held at gunpoint in 2007. Yeah, true story. I got held at gunpoint for climbing through the window of my parents' home, and somebody called and thought I was breaking into the house.
Oh.
And even with the correct documentation of showing that I lived there with my license and everything, I was still locked up until my father got out of work and wrote a statement to the judge that I had to see that night. And I was released, and then everything was dropped. But I had no money.
Wow, no kidding. No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that in hindsight? Because I would imagine that experience was very frustrating, but at the same time, obviously the police were, they're looking out for your parents. I mean,
at the time I was teed off.
Yeah,
I was teed off. Because one, I was a year out of high school. I forgot the key to my house. I was actually I didn't have a car. I took the bus home from work. I was working at a supermarket, and I forgot the key. And I knew that the side window of the house was open, so I climbed through it. And someone saw me, and they called the cops, and they held me at gunpoint, literally at gunpoint.
Yeah.
And even with the correct documentation of my license showing that, hey, I do live here, I just did not have the key. The cop was not such a nice person. He just had it out for all the young kids.
Oh.
And still locked me up, detained me, and I got stuck in a police station in a holding cell for about 6 hours till my father got done work. He had to come in and write a letter to the judge stating that that he's not pressing any charges or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was the township that was wanting to hold pressing charges against me, but the judge overseen that and dropped it because of the letter from my father.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing. That was the only time I ever had a run-in with the law. And it ticked me off because I had all the documentation stating that I lived there, but it wasn't good enough because I was an adult, I guess, and
yeah,
they, it didn't really matter. They didn't know if I actually lived there or not. I could have been living there.
Right.
There was never any problems when I lived there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it was a crazy story, man. Crazy story.
Wow.
But yeah. But anywho, all right, Matt. Is Easy G calling in today? We going to get some updates today?
I don't know because we didn't hear from him at all yesterday, which is unusual, and I don't think we heard from him on Friday either.
He was on the morning show this morning talking about how he had his stool sampled before at the hospital along with Peter. So he called in and was talking about that.
Oh, I didn't know they. I didn't know they went together. That's nice.
Yeah, Easy G was like, yeah, I did that before, Peter.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, Easy G, he's always trying to get free tickets to stuff. So he's trying to suck up to Peter White. Oh yeah, I can relate, right. Peter. I know what I understand what you've gone through. Nah, I'm just kidding. We love Easy G. I hope he does call.
Love our boy Easy. Love our boy.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Matty, do your thing, brother.
All right. Thank you for the call, Tony.
All right, be good.
All right, take care. All right, Tony D from Philadelphia, or Philadelphia, as one of the lawyers pronounced it, one of the attorneys representing Donald John Trump in the Senate trial, the impeachment trial. Tony, of course, host of the Tony D Show, which is live online every Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m. and, of course, available on all your finer podcasting networks. So we always enjoy hearing from Tony. Eric Street in the chat room says, arrested for breaking into your own house? Do these guys make commission for each arrest? And Tom Blanchard confirms that, yes, I did understand correctly. Yes, Matt, that's correct. Trump is a piece of blank, but I'm not sure about Biden. We will see. Yes, indeed. And we have another call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. This is Karen. How are you?
Good, Karen. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was just calling because I was listening to Tony's story about being arrested for going into his parents' own home.
Yes.
I actually am a neighbor that called on a teenager that broke through a window in the back of our house into our neighbor's home, and I did call the police. I thought it was their son, but I wasn't sure. So I did call the police. And come to find out, he was kicked out of the house. They changed the locks, and he wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh. Right. Oh, my goodness. You know,
it does happen that even though the child is their child, that they're not supposed to be there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I mean, the people who, I hate to put it this way, no offense, Tony, but the people who did call the police on Tony, they did the right thing if they thought something was happening, certainly. But I think Tony understands that now looking back on it, but I can understand his frustration in the moment, as anyone would be. But see, you didn't go for a second there. I thought you were going somewhere else with that, Karen. I thought you were going to tell us that you were the one that called the police on Tony.
No. No, I'm born and raised here, so it wasn't me.
Right. Well, yeah, you never know. I mean, maybe in an alternate universe, who knows? There could be a rip in the space-time continuum and things get all confused. I mean, remember, for the longest time, Tony thought that Gonzo was used to be on the radio in Philadelphia. You just never know.
That's true.
Yes.
I just can't figure out why they didn't call his parents and get it straightened out, because, they caught the kid in the house, brought him out to their deck, and called the parents, and that's how they found out.
Yeah, I don't know. These things are tricky, but do you know why? So in your case, when you called on the kid who broke into the house, do you know why the kid had been kicked out?
I have no idea why the kid had been kicked out. No.
I'm just nosy about that kind of thing. I like gossip.
But I do think it's weird, because when I called the police and told them the house address, which is behind me, the street behind me, they asked me to go in my backyard, and when the police officer gets to the deck, tell him where the person broke in. I'm like, yeah, so I'm out in the open.
That's
telling him
weird.
Where somebody broke in.
That's very weird. They told you to do that? That's very strange.
Yeah.
That's very strange to me. Must have been a rookie. It sounds like such a terrible idea. Yeah, go.
It sounded like a terrible idea for me, because it's like I'm right out in the open in my backyard. I don't know if that person has a weapon or not.
Right? Yeah, you don't know what's going on. Yeah, if you don't mind, ma'am, just go and put yourself in danger until we're able to arrive.
Yeah,
it's bizarre. That is bizarre. Wow. So what did you say? Did you say, no, I'm not going to do that?
Well, I actually said I will wait in my cellar until the policeman gets on the deck, and then when he's on the deck, I will come out as far as my cellar door lets me, and I'll point to the window where the kid went in.
Right. A compromise. I like that. Yes. Well.
Yeah, just a compromise. But yes, I was one of those neighbors that did call the police on somebody breaking into a house.
Yeah. Well, it's the right thing to do, because you don't know what's going on, So, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. All right.
But I do have to be honest and say, I thought about it first. I'm going, should I call? Shouldn't I call? Should I call?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Joe Biden, now President Biden, he suggested in certain situations you just run outside with a shotgun and just fire it into the air a couple of times. You could have done that. Do you own a shotgun?
No, I don't own a gun at all.
No, okay.
But, you can't do that because you do have to, everybody has to realize when you shoot it up in the air, that bullet has to come down somewhere.
I've always wondered about that, though. Like, what happens? Like, how high in the air does it go? And does it land and hurt somebody? I've never been clear on exactly how that works. I thought maybe it shoots into the atmosphere and it disintegrates or something. I don't know. Or, of course, if you're a flat earther and you believe the earth is covered by a firmament, that would be particularly scary because it might ricochet.
That's true. But I always assumed if you shot it up in the air, if it didn't hit a flying bird,
right,
it was going to come back down somewhere.
You would think so, yeah. I've never really heard that explained, though. Like, what happens when you fire a gun into the air? I don't know.
I don't either, but I don't really want to find out.
I remember telling Easy G once when he worked at Creamland, he said that one of his duties there was if people were pulling into the Creamland parking lot, but they weren't actually patrons of Creamland, they just needed a place to park, so they were leaving their cars there. Part of his job, and maybe he wasn't good at it, which is why he got fired, but part of his job was to go outside and tell them they had to move, that they couldn't park there. And I had suggested to Easy G, if you really want to be effective at your job, what you do is you keep a shotgun, if they'll let you have one on the premises, you keep a shotgun with you. And then when someone goes to park where they're not supposed to park, you just run out there with the shotgun and you fire a couple of shots in the air and you say, get, and then they'll be on their way. Quick and easy. No one gets hurt. But I think he had already been fired by that point, so my advice wasn't helpful.
No, it wasn't helpful, and I don't think they'd let him keep a shotgun anyway.
Well, you might be right about that. I have to admit, I hadn't completely thought it through, but who knows? I do have to say, to have that job, though, as far as telling people to leave that parking lot, it's not in the best neighborhood of the city. I would tell them, no, I'm not telling those people to leave. Right. That's right. Well, of course, if you had to call the police on someone who was parking there and you didn't want to tell them to leave because you thought they were dangerous, the police would probably tell you, well, just go out there and stand by the car and those people so you can point them out to us when we get there.
Exactly.
Why not?
So
right?
It really wouldn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right, Karen. Anything else on your mind?
No, I just wanted to let Tony D know that I am sorry he went through that, but I was one of those neighbors, but mine worked out better. The kid wasn't supposed to be in the house. Right. Yes. You did the right thing. All right, Karen. Thank you so much for the call. You're welcome. Have a good night. Thanks. You too. Bye-bye. All right. Always nice to hear from our friend Karen, and that opens up a line for you, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Jenny points out gravity happens and sometimes Darwin. I'm sincere, though, when I say I've never really known, like, what happens when you fire a gun into the air like that. Like, the bullet's got to go somewhere, right? Jared Martineau is in the Facebook live chat and says it really depends on the angle the round was fired at. Tony D says, that's funny. I became a firefighter after that to shove it up their butt. Oh, my goodness. The police? Well, yes, you became a first responder, just as Angela Philbrook says, wait, let me make sure I get the whole comment here. Oh, see, it shows up on one screen, but not the other. I can't see the full comment. Facebook is being very weird. If you're just joining us, I apologize. Facebook is being very weird. But Angela said Manchester police sometimes ask a caller to do weird things. Once I called non-emergency number to say someone was laying on the ground in a park, not moving at all. They asked me to go over and see if they were breathing. No. Yeah. I especially would not do that during the COVID era. Oh, and regarding Easy G and Peter White, Jenny suggested maybe it was a couple's colonoscopy. Well, hopefully we do hear from Easy G, and hopefully he gets his tablet up and running this week. It's only been, how many weeks now has it been since he received that wonderful tablet from our friend Brian McKay? Tom Blanchard says, regarding the bullet in the air, it actually loses velocity and just falls. Okay. So I assume what you're saying then is, so it goes up in the air to a certain point,
and then it just loses, like you said, loses velocity and just falls, but it probably doesn't fall at a rate that would actually harm anyone, I assume, right? It's not the same as when the bullet is initially fired from the gun. It's going to harm or kill someone, but when it's just falling from the air after having been fired into the air, it doesn't have the velocity necessary to do any harm, I assume. Jared says, a bullet dropped at free fall will not kill someone, so a near vertical shot won't be lethal. Still a stupid and reckless idea. Yes, well, and again, I just, I just didn't want, I didn't want people parking at Creamland and getting EZG worked up. I was trying to help. Let's see. Can I find that, let me see if I can find that Biden clip really quickly of, Joe Biden. That is one thing I worry about a little bit with the Democrats in charge is, I'm one issue that I'm kind of conservative on is guns, and hopefully they don't do anything too crazy here. Did I find it? Yeah, here it is.
If you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun. Have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun, and I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that's wooded and somewhat secluded. I said, Jill, if there's ever a problem, just walk out on the balcony here, or walk out, put that double-barrel shotgun, and fire 2 blasts outside the house. I promise you, who's ever coming in is not going to, you don't need an AR-15.
Yeah, well, in a perfect world, I did vote for him. I do support him, but I get the Democrats make me very nervous on that last cycle, that last election cycle during some of those debates. People like Beto O'Rourke and Eric Swalwell, and I like Eric Swalwell. Beto, I don't know about Beto O'Rourke. I don't think he has the gravitas to be president. I mean, I'd start a band with him. But, they're like just coming right out and saying, hell yeah, we're going to take your guns. It's like, whoa, that's not how you win a general election should you happen to be the nominee there, guys. Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's see. Jared says the Mythbusters did this very experiment. I used to watch that show, Mythbusters. I used to watch that with my uncle. Let's see. Before we move on, we're going to take a break. We're actually going to take the top of the hour break a few minutes early because I have a voicemail I need to listen to. But this is what we were talking about earlier, this lawsuit. This is from Business Insider. The NAACP is suing Trump, Giuliani, and 2 extremist groups for inciting the violent Capitol riot. The suit also named the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers as defendants. It accuses them of violating the Ku Klux Klan Act by conspiring to incite a riot. Boy, when Gavin McInnes started the Proud Boys, did he ever think it would go this far? See, when people say, well, Trump's rhetoric didn't cause this at all. It's like, well, what exactly? When Trump told a national audience at a debate, when he said in front of a national audience to the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, what precisely do you think that meant? I mean, I know how I took it. And I know how they took it. They got the message, didn't they? It says here, a Mississippi congressman and the NAACP have filed suit against former President Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and 2 extremist groups in connection to the January 6th Capitol insurrection. The suit was brought on behalf of Representative Benny Thompson, the House Homeland Security chairman, and alleges that Trump, Giuliani, the Oath Keepers, and Proud Boys violated the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act by conspiring to incite a riot in an effort to prevent the certification of the 2020 presidential election. During the violent breach of the Capitol, Thompson was among lawmakers who were forced to lie on the floor and don gas masks to avoid the rioters, the suit said. By the way, remember, this is what Ron Johnson is saying wasn't really that big of a deal. We'll come back to him later. Thompson was eventually led out of the Capitol to the Longworth House office building to shelter in place in a room with more than 200 other lawmakers, staff members, and family members. At 72, Thompson is at an increased risk of COVID-19 complications. 2 other people who were trapped in the confined space with Thompson later tested positive for the coronavirus, the suit said. Attorney Joseph M. Sellers of the human rights firm Cohen Milstein wrote in the suit, quote, "During this entire time, Plaintiff Thompson reasonably feared for his physical safety while trapped in the building during the siege by the rioters that defendants unleashed on the Capitol. Plaintiff Thompson feared for his life and worried that he might never see his family again," unquote. The suit alleges Trump and Giuliani's rhetoric ahead of the riots, specifically their efforts to misinform their supporters about the legitimacy of election results, incited the violence. The Proud Boys and the anti-government militia group, the Oath Keepers, who were also named as defendants in the suit, have already been accused by law enforcement of preemptively planning the riot. And we've been learning more about that, right? By the way, the preemptive planning, it's very interesting to me. One of the oddest defenses, but a defense that I've been seeing and hearing of Trump and his ilk is that, well, look, this was pre-planned, so nothing Trump said or Giuliani said or anything had anything to do with it. They were already planning to do this. It's like, no, remember, it's not about the speech. It's about everything leading up to the speech. The speech was just the cherry on top of the whole thing. It was about everything leading up to it. It was about Trump saying over and over again, oh, if I lose, it's because the election is rigged and they stole it from you. It's a stolen election. And then after he lost, see, they stole it from you. And then, you know, or like the example I gave too, again, before the election, when he said, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. Again, what do you think that meant? I know what they thought it meant. It was everything leading up to the election. They stole it from you, and we can't let them get away with it. It says here, Thompson is seeking compensatory and punitive damages, according to the lawsuit filed Tuesday morning in the federal district court in Washington. Trump is being sued personally because he, quote, acted beyond the outer perimeter of his official duties, unquote, according to Sellers, the attorney on this. Thompson told the New York Times he wouldn't have brought the suit against Trump if the Senate had voted to convict him during his second impeachment trial last week. During the insurrection, Thompson heard a gunshot ring out. He later learned it was the moment Capitol Police shot Ashley Babbitt as she broke into the building. Thompson said in a written statement distributed by the NAACP, quote, January 6th was one of the most shameful days in our country's history, and it was instigated by the president himself. His gleeful support of violent white supremacists led to a breach of the Capitol that put my life and that of my colleagues in grave danger. It is by the slimmest of luck that the outcome was not deadlier. While the majority of Republicans in the Senate abdicated their responsibility to hold the president accountable, we must hold him accountable for the insurrection that he so blatantly planned, unquote. There's a little more to this. The only thing in there I would take issue with, because you all know how I feel about it. I do believe that Trump is directly responsible for all this, and he did incite this. The only thing in there that I would take issue with is I would not have used this phraseology. Then again, I'm not an attorney, right? So what do I know? But I would not have said the insurrection that he so blatantly planned. We don't know of Donald Trump himself actually planning the insurrection. Did he incite the insurrection? Did he provoke it? Did he directly cause it to happen? My view is absolutely 100% yes. But to say that he actually planned it, well, now we're going a step beyond what I would regard as accurate. Maybe that's intended to be hyperbolic. I don't know. But I think I think he's overshooting the mark a little bit with that statement. I wouldn't say that he so blatantly planned. I think he caused it. I would have just changed the word planned to caused, that he so blatantly caused, because I believe that would be accurate. But to say that he planned it, I mean, we may find out eventually that I would be skeptical of this, but anything's possible. You know, that he did coordinate something with someone, but God, I hope not. That's as awful as this is. That's even worse. The civil action is the latest in the tsunami of legal peril awaiting Trump. Federal, state, and local investigations and lawsuits could follow him for years. Oh, he's going to be under this avalanche of legal problems for the rest of his life. In a statement to Insider, a spokesman for Trump denied that the former president incited violence at the Capitol and tried to shift the blame to Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Yeah, that's the new Lindsey Graham, I think, started that. Oh, it's actually Nancy Pelosi's fault. Jason Miller made a statement that we won't even bother with because it's a joke. And there's just no point. Tom Blanchard says in the chat room, Trump isn't smart enough. Whoa, and his comment just disappeared. That's weird. I think Tom was saying Trump isn't smart enough to plan anything like that. But sorry, Tom. Hopefully I got that right. Your comment disappeared, not because of anything you did. Facebook is being extremely wonky and difficult. So with that said, we will take a break. We're taking the break just a little bit earlier than usual, but we'll come back and we'll get into what that spineless jellyfish Ron Johnson had to say today. And these people are just, they're pathetic. They'll go to any lengths to justify and rationalize what happened on January 6th. It's actually worse than I thought in terms of just how low they'll go. But we'll get into that when we come back. More Unleashed coming up. Don't go anywhere.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Welcome back, everybody. We are into now hour number 2, numero dos here of Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we are live from the studios of WMNH in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester, streaming at WMNHradio.org and on the Facebook on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Also, you can go to mattconnarton.com and get all the contact info for the show and how to stream it, etc., etc. And today is Tuesday, February 16, 2021. It's a short month, February. Wow. You know, which is fine with me. I like to think of March 1st, and I got this from my dad. I like to think of March 1st as the first day of spring. Now, I know technically it's, actually it's almost the end of March when spring shows up. What is the first day of spring? Is it March 21st, 22nd, around there? But I've always liked to think of it as my dad, when I was growing up, he always told me he likes to think of winter as really only being 2 months long, January and February, because December, most of December is technically still fall, and you tend not to get into the really severe weather until January anyway. So then you've got January and February to contend with. Once you get to March, March can kind of go either way. Sometimes, it starts to warm up pretty quickly in very early March, and some years March can be every bit as bad as February. You really never know. But even if it's bad, you know you're in the home stretch. So to me, March 1st is the first day of spring. So we're only a couple of weeks away from spring. That's how I look at it. Not that there's much room to complain. We have it's been a pretty easy winter so far overall. It really has. But anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about the weather. Maybe next time I'll do a sports segment, which I know even less about. But there you go. If you'd like to call, 603-250-6007 is the number, 603-250-6007. You can also send a text to 617-917-4476. Tweet me at Matt Connarton, or send an email to matt@mattconnerton.com. And of course, you are welcome to interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. However, I will give you just a brief disclaimer. Facebook, as does happen from time to time, it's being very wonky today as far as streaming the show. So I'm just telling you, in case you say something in the Facebook live chat or you announce yourself as being present, if I don't acknowledge you, please do not take it personally. I love and appreciate you all tremendously. I do pay a little extra deference to people who are in the Facebook live chat because obviously, you know, you've got everybody listening in their cars during their afternoon commute. That's why we call it drive time. But people who are in the Facebook live chat have taken that extra step to communicate and interact with the show and actively participate. So I do like to acknowledge everyone in there. I try not to miss anyone's name who pops up. But when Facebook is being Facebook, in other words, a little janky, as it has been today, I might not necessarily see you all in there. Melanie Fedderson joins us. She says, announcing myself. Thank you for doing that, Melanie. Also, our new friend Raven is in the chat room. Raven called the show yesterday. And Raven, I don't know if you heard the first half of the show, but I'll tell you what, my friend, you brought up yesterday when you called in, could there be civil litigation against Trump regarding what happened at the Capitol? And then sure enough, today, the NAACP announces their lawsuit against Trump over the Capitol riot. And very interesting. So I said yesterday, you're on to something. Mike Palapita is in the chat room. He says we are all here. Mike, of course, from one of our wonderful sponsors here at WMNH, Queen City Cabinetry. Bring your kitchen to life with Queen City Cabinetry and other rooms as well, of course. We're also proudly sponsored by the Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street. They have delicious gourmet pretzels. They have craft beer. They have wine. Don't go there today. They're closed Monday and Tuesday. That's their weekend, but they'll be open tomorrow. They're open Wednesday through Sunday. They're doing something very cool. They have face masks. They have Hop Knot face masks. They're $10. They look really cool. And if you buy one, let's say you place an order for carryout, when you go to pick it up, when you walk in wearing your Hop Knot face mask, because you do have to wear a face mask when you walk in, they're taking COVID very seriously, which is one of the things we love about having them as a sponsor. If you walk in wearing your Hop Knot face mask, you get 10% off your order, which is really cool. So it's almost like a frequent shopper card that you wear on your face. But great food, great service, great family, and we love them very much. The Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street. Let's see. Also, too, I want to welcome back officially, formally on the air, Peter White of The Morning Show with Peter White. You know, he was out for a few days with an illness, but he is back, back with a vengeance. I don't know if I should put it that way. I don't know if he wants to avenge anything, but he's back. He's back. The Morning Show with Peter White, of course, which you can hear weekday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on WMNH with a replay from 2 to 4 p.m. right before this show. But it was great to hear him back live. So welcome back, Peter. Let's see. Tony D is in the Facebook live chat. Jenny is in there. DJ Midas, of course. Midas, host of Late Night Delight every Saturday night from 12 midnight with a replay on Sunday if you miss it. Let's see. I see Angela Philbrook. Who else? Tom Blanchard, of course. Miriam Banish. Stephen Philbrook is in the chat. Abigail Jem. Scott Perry of Courtesy Call, the Courtesy Call podcast. Eric Street. I think Jared Martineau. Hello, Jared. Let's see. I think that's everyone so far. I like to make sure we get everybody. It's like when I was a kid and I'd watch Romper Room and she'd never say my name when she'd look through the magic mirror. And she months would go by and she would not say, "I see Matthew," and it was very upsetting to me. Paul Cormier, better known as Paulie C, is in the Facebook live chat. Paul, of course, host of Retro Spectrum Radio with Paulie C, which you can hear live every Friday night from 8 to 10 p.m. here on WMNH. And I have the honor and privilege of being Paul's co-host on that show, along with our great friend Dan Randlett. Dan couldn't make it last Friday, so instead we were joined by DJ Stephen Light, who was the DJ at Happy Wheels back in the day here in Manchester. That was my first time meeting him. He'd been on the morning show a number of times, but I hadn't met him before, and that was pretty cool. So we had a great time. And, of course, if you missed it, all the shows are archived at WMNHradio.org. Cheryl Davis-Farrow is in the Facebook live chat. Hello, Cheryl. So let me give the number again quickly, and then I want to move on to this Ron Johnson thing. Of course, you can call us 603-250-6007. We'll go with the Yahoo News. We don't pay enough attention to Yahoo News. I still have my Yahoo Mail account for email. I'm kidding. I don't know if that even exists anymore, Yahoo Mail. I think they may have closed it. Oh, I see the icon for mail. I think I have. I think you can actually email me, mattconnerton@yahoo.com. I think you can contact me that way, but I'll never see it because I have no idea what the password is. It's probably long gone. So, Wisconsin Republican U.S. Senator Ron Johnson downplayed the storming of the U.S. Capitol last month, saying on Conservative Talk Radio Monday that, quote, "It didn't seem like an insurrection, like an armed insurrection to me," unquote. Johnson's comments on WISN AM in Milwaukee came after he voted Saturday to acquit former President Donald Trump in his second impeachment trial. Johnson said in the interview that Trump's attorneys eviscerated legal arguments made by Democrats seeking to convict Trump for instigating the insurrection. Johnson is one of Trump's most ardent supporters. He is up for re-election in 2022. That's why. But hasn't said yet whether he'll seek a third term. Johnson condemned the violence and 5 deaths during the January 6th riot, but said what happened was not an armed insurrection. Now, if you haven't heard this yet or seen it, I'm not going to play the audio. I don't even want to hear this guy's voice. But I'll tell you what he said. Here's the quote. "When you hear the word armed, don't you think of firearms? Here's the questions I would have liked to ask. How many firearms were confiscated? How many shots were fired? I'm only aware of one, and I'll defend that law enforcement officer for taking that shot. It was a tragedy. But I think there was only one. If that was a planned armed insurrection, man, you really had a bunch of idiots," unquote. So let's start with the obvious, shall we? No, you can be armed with something that is not a firearm. It doesn't have to be a gun to consider being armed. I mean, if you were to ask someone, well, let me put it this way. Ask any one of the families of the officers who are dead, or any of the people who are dead from what happened on January 6th. Do you think that was an armed insurrection? I mean, come on. Could you really call it that? I think they would say yes, clearly. If you're beating someone up, if your idea of backing the blue, because these people are into that. If your idea of backing the blue is beating a police officer to death with a fire extinguisher, do you say, well, you can't really blame the insurrectionist for doing that with for wielding a fire extinguisher in that way? After all, it's not like the guy was armed with a fire extinguisher. It's not a firearm. You can't. I mean, come on. It's obvious what he's trying to do. He doesn't like the phrase armed insurrection. He's trying to downplay it. This is the first one I've seen go this far. I mean, we've seen the rationalizations and the justifications, right? Oh, it wasn't really Trump supporters. It was Antifa. It was BLM. It was paid actors. That was a big thing. You know, the shaman there, the MAGA shaman, or what do we call him? Oh, the Q shaman, the QAnon shaman, you know, with his organic food and his pelt that he wore or whatever. That guy. Remember, the first thing that right-wing conspiracy theorists tried to spread was that he was a paid actor, right? And, of course, that was easily debunked and disproven immediately. But you know, so they try to blame somebody else. There's all these false equivalencies, of course. Well, how come Democrats are okay with violence breaking out at Antifa and BLM protests, but they're all upset about this? It's like, well, first of all, I can tell you from my perspective, I condemn all violence, but I don't recall anybody storming the Capitol at a BLM or Antifa protest. And by the way, at a BLM or Antifa protest, you would see people of color. And people of color would not have been allowed to get as far as these people did on January 6th. That's for sure. They would have been gunned down and tear gassed, and all kinds of things. They wouldn't have been, given the latitude that these MAGA people were. But so you hear these justifications and rationalizations and whatnot. But Ron Johnson is the first one I've seen take it this far, where he's basically like, so he's not. See, he's, instead of trying to blame somebody else, instead of trying to blame Antifa or BLM for posing as the rioters, or instead of trying to say, well, you can't really blame them because there was rioting at these protests, at BLM protests, and, Democrats are fine with that, so we should be fine with this. What he's saying is, this is new. He's the first one I've seen do this. What he's saying is, it wasn't that big a deal. Why is everybody so upset? They weren't armed. So it's all good, right? Come on. That's what he's saying. And I shouldn't be amazed anymore at this point, but I am. I see what the Republican Party has become, and the just the patheticness. I mean, Ron Johnson is so pathetic that he's actually, but it's not even the rationalization itself that makes him pathetic. I mean, he's trying to rationalize what happened as not being a big deal because I guess the MAGA people didn't actually shoot anybody. They were planning to, apparently. They were planning to. We know that now. But I guess they didn't actually shoot at police officers. They just beat them over the head with flags and fire extinguishers and were throwing all kinds of things at them and were attacking them in other ways. Oh, and don't forget the one who was crushed to death in a door. But they weren't armed. So what's the big deal? What's everybody freaking out about, right? No big deal. But here's what makes it really pathetic. Think about why this is, why he's saying that. Because he's up for re-election in 2022. And the party is still, and it's like Tony D and I talked about this earlier, the party, the Republican Party, still belongs 100, well, not 100% if you go by polling data, but close to it. But it belongs to Donald Trump. This is what the Republican Party is now. Ron Johnson is actually trying to minimize what happened on January 6th as not being a big deal in service to Trump. He's going to act like there's no problem here. This is his approach. Instead of trying to blame somebody else, or instead of trying to say, well, the president didn't do anything wrong, or even if he did do anything wrong, he has a First Amendment right to say what he said and all that. No. His approach is to just, it's not a big deal what happened. Who cares? But it's all in service. It's like Ben Sass, Senator Ben Sass of Nebraska, one of the few who voted guilty in the Senate. He said the Republican Party, and I think I can quote him almost verbatim. Hopefully I've got this right, because I like what he said. He said, the Republican Party should not be about the weird worship of one dude. But that's clearly what it is. And polling data shows, by the way, I've seen polls that show 85% of Republicans actually believe the election was stolen by Biden. More than half of Republicans are sympathetic to QAnon. That might be the scariest thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene, extremely popular among Republicans. They gave her a standing ovation in the House. And apparently she's very popular in Georgia among Republicans. That's what the modern Republican Party is. It's very much the party of Trump. It's the party of Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's the party of QAnon. And it's the party of Ron Johnson. This pathetic, absolutely pathetic, groveling, spineless jellyfish. This guy, a United States senator saying, well, they weren't actually armed. That's a bit of an exaggeration, right? Oh my God. How pathetic is this? And this is why Republicans are leaving the party in droves. Several states where they make this information public, they've said, in record numbers, Republicans are leaving and switching their registration to Democrat or Independent because they don't want to be associated with the Republican Party anymore. Well, if all the Republicans who are leaving the party are leaving because they no longer want to be associated with Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and QAnon and Ron Johnson, well, what's left? Right? Then the people who stay behind, obviously, they're good with all of this. And it's just sad. I mean, I've said on the show before, I've said it multiple times, I think, there's a very good chance that Governor Chris Sununu, a Republican, he was the one Republican I voted for in the last election. He may very well be the last Republican I ever vote for in my lifetime. Because if this is what the party is now, and by the way, I mean, it should be obvious enough I don't have to say it, but I'll say it. If a Democrat had done 1/1000th of these things or said these things, of course, they all would have voted to convict. If you put Joe Biden or Barack Obama or whoever you want in the exact same situation, losing an election, saying it was stolen, it was fraud, getting supporters all worked up, and then this happened on January 6th, every Republican in the country would be screaming that individual incited these people into rioting and would call for them to be thrown in prison over it. You know that's true. That is an absolute fact. Every Republican in the country would be screaming for that. And while they were at it, they'd all be going, "See, I told you, you can't trust that Barack Obama. I told you he was really from Kenya." They would just go all in with all of it. Every weird, messed up conspiracy theory they ever came up with about Barack Obama, they would say, "See, told you." Right? They would. But this is who the party is now. It is still controlled by Trump, and they're all terrified of him. Why did Mitch McConnell do what he did? Where he voted not guilty and then gave a speech that could have easily been a speech on behalf of the prosecution. He eviscerated Trump. He eviscerated him in his comments after voting not guilty. And he used the rationalization, well, I don't believe that this is constitutional because Trump is already out of office, so we can't do anything. Now, there's multiple problems with that argument, of course, in that historically there is precedent for doing this after someone has left office. But also, too, by Mitch McConnell's logic, a president is free to do whatever he or she wants in the waning days of a presidency with no fear of accountability, I guess, right? According to that logic. Also, the Senate had already voted. They had taken a vote about whether or not they had the power to conduct this trial. And the Senate voted, of which Mitch McConnell is a member. He is a United States Senator. The Senate voted in the affirmative that, yes, they do have the authority to do this. And then McConnell, again, like I said, he makes having it both ways look easy, right? He then votes not guilty, but then eviscerates Trump. I mean, hey, I like the speech. Everything McConnell said. Like I said, that could have been a speech for the prosecution. Everything McConnell said, I agreed with. Except for the little bit about his rationale about why he couldn't vote guilty. But then indicated Trump clearly was guilty. But Mitch McConnell is an 80-year-old man. Mitch McConnell doesn't want to be hassled at the airport. So he had to vote. He felt, I'm not going to make excuses for him, but he felt like he had to vote not guilty. Because what happens, again, this is what the party is now. What happens if you even faintly go against Trump? Forget about a mob at the Capitol. Hopefully that never happens again. What's going to happen to you at the airport? And I use that example because that's what happened to Lindsey Graham on the day of the insurrection. I almost made the mistake that Chuck Schumer did and used the wrong word. It's easy to do. On the day of the insurrection, when the counting was halted that night, when they returned to work and they finished the certification, the House had to finish the certification of the votes, and senators had to make their case as to why they objected. Lindsey Graham got up, and it was actually a good moment for him. He hasn't had a lot of good moments, in my view, in the last 4 years, but Lindsey Graham got up and said, you know what? As far as this challenging the validity of the vote, count me out. His exact words, he said, count me out. He said, look, there's just no evidence. He said, I asked, I asked Rudy Giuliani or I asked whoever. He gave a couple of examples. I asked, Trump's legal team. I said, okay, so in Georgia, for example, they say we have 100 instances of voter fraud. We have over 100. And I said, okay, just show me 10. Show me 10. They couldn't show me one, not even one. And then he used another example. He said, I asked Rudy Giuliani. I said, show me 10 examples. He said, we have hundreds. I said, just show me 10. Couldn't show me one. Couldn't show me one. So count me out, he said. We can't keep going down this road. Count me out. That's all he did. That's all he did. He didn't blame Trump for what happened at the Capitol. He didn't get into any of that. He just said, as far as us continuing to stonewall this over these claims of voter fraud, count me out because it just doesn't hold up. And what happened? He goes to the airport that night or the next day, and he's got people yelling in his face, telling him and by the way, he's a veteran. He served in the United States military. And he's got these wannabe military, these militia freaks at the airport screaming at him, calling him a traitor, telling him he didn't do the right thing. All he did was say, I can't do this voter fraud thing anymore because it's not going anywhere, guys. So forget it. It's not getting us anywhere. That's all he did. He's still closely aligned with Trump. That's why he then made a point of hanging out with Trump for an entire day. I forget where they went. He didn't go to Mar-a-Lago like Kevin McCarthy did. But Kevin McCarthy, another example, right? What did Kevin McCarthy do? Apparently, we know now about the conversation. Kevin McCarthy told Trump while the insurrection was happening, please call them off. Call them off. And what did Trump say to him? Well, Kevin, I guess they're just more upset about the election than you are. Which is another way of saying, well, Kevin, I guess these people are loyal to me, more loyal to me than you are. And then Kevin McCarthy allegedly said to him, who the blank do you think you're talking to? Which I don't believe Kevin McCarthy actually said. I don't think he spoke to him that forcefully. He might have said something like, well, Mr. President, I'm very sorry, but I just would really appreciate it if you would call them off pretty please. Not to upset you, my lord and master, but if you wouldn't mind. That's probably more along the lines of what Kevin McCarthy said. But, and then McCarthy said, on the floor of the House, the president's partly to blame for this, right? And then what does Kevin McCarthy do? We've all seen the picture now, right? He goes to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring or something of Trump. And there's that picture of the two of them standing there together, just beaming. It is a cult. It is 100% a cult. And they had a chance. They had a chance to be done with him, to be done with Trump forever. They did. They could have voted guilty. They could have convicted him. Then they could have had a separate vote, never run for office again. But they're so afraid of the base because the base still loves Trump. Everybody gets it wrong. They say all these Republicans are afraid of Trump. They're not afraid of Trump. They're afraid of the base because you know who the base is? The base are the people who show up in the Capitol and storm the Capitol. The base are the people who show up at the airport and give you a hard time if you leave the Trump train and they don't approve of it. That's the base. The base censures you. All these state Republican parties censuring all the senators who voted to convict in the House and in the Senate. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Ridley Nation.
Hey, Dave Ridley. How are you?
Not Ridley Empire.
Oh, good. Good. We don't like empires.
I know. I see you were talking about the empire there. So, yeah, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, I call it a cult. The cult of Trump.
Well, it's the cult of federal government, ultimately. I mean, they have a symbol you are supposed to sort of, you don't bow down to it, but you put your hand over your heart. They have these people who sit on raised up, platforms, and you have pews that you go into. Those are called courts. So it's communism. People figured out that was a religion. This is a religion, too.
Well, yeah, I kind of think of it, though. I mean, Trump is like his own religion. He's his own thing. He's a television. He's a big television character, So, I'm astonished by. Actually, Dave, I don't think I've ever asked you this, but I'm curious because you're very much what we would call a libertarian. Are you ever surprised at how many libertarians? I mean, I'm sure there are things about Trump that you might like or approve of, some of his policies, and I'm sure there's things about him that bother you, I assume. But
there are some things about Obama and Biden's policies that I like and approved of.
Right.
I mean, every president does one or two good things.
Oh, sure. But what I'm curious about is, are you ever surprised or perplexed at how many libertarians got on the Trump train and are kind of really a part of the cult, even though, because to me, it's like, and by the way, many of them are not. I know libertarians who despise Trump, but I also have been kind of perplexed over the last 4 years how many libertarians seem to say, well, we're libertarians. We don't like authoritarianism. Oh, but Trump likes authoritarianism, at least in some instances. Actually, when he's into it, I guess we're into it too. I mean, it's bizarre to me. I've been really kind of shocked by it.
The number, there's not that many, actually. It seems, in my experience, there are some. Carla Garrett voted for him. She's the Senate candidate, the Republican Senate candidate.
Yep.
In Manchester, but she's a free stater, and she's a libertarian, and she posted a message, on Facebook explaining why she was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I responded. I said, "On your head be it."
Yeah.
but ultimately, I think that also you have to. It's easy to respect him more than someone like Biden, just because he's so
not me.
He actually did prove to be a little bit anti-establishment. As much of an authoritarian as he was, he really was a little bit anti-establishment, at least in his rhetoric.
Yeah,
and
I
people
can't.
get tired of being lied to. It's the I hate to bring it up. Bosnia, Yugoslavia.
Sure. Oh, sure.
I always.
No, I know.
I understand that place almost better than I understand the United States. And the thing there was that, they had these communists lying to them all the time, but the communists they had one good thing about them, at least, and that they were not racists, right? So when the communists fell, it was replaced by a racist ideology. And I always said Trump is sort of like America's Slobodan Milosevic, right? He's going to inflame the tensions within the country. And there was also this tendency of the press in Yugoslavia to be really boring. And then one day it got really interesting as they let all the racists, they stopped censoring the racists, right? And so all of a sudden, like TV in Sarajevo was, it was really boring. And then all of a sudden they started letting, just people just report whatever they felt like. And so you would see it was a mix of really bigoted and really open. Because they let these bigoted people just say whatever they want, but then they let a completely different bigoted person come on the air and say something completely different.
Right.
And so it was great freedom, and then on the other hand, it got out of control. Not the freedom, but stuff got out of control. Racism got out of control, and that's why you had part of why you had all these problems in Yugoslavia. So with Trump, we've been lucky in the sense that he was really inflammatory. But it never really quite got out of control, right? I mean,
I don't agree.
Not in the sense of war, not in the sense of warfare.
Oh, in that regard specifically, I have no problem saying, and I've said many times, I'm glad that we didn't invade anybody, and that's a good thing. And Trump ran on that, and on that. I mean, at one point it looked like we were he does like to rattle the saber. I remember early in his presidency, at one point it looked like we were going to possibly invade Venezuela, as bizarre as it sounds still as it comes out of my mouth. But no, I'll give credit where it's due. However, I can't get on board with the whole idea, respecting him more than Biden and whatnot. But I personally find Trump to be just, kind of in his own category of malevolence. I find him just extraordinarily evil in so many ways. But I'm happy to have an administration that is pro science. So I'll take Biden over Trump any day of the week. I think Trump is genuinely just malevolent. It's difficult for me to find a lot of, but hey, I'll give him that one on foreign policy. He didn't get us into any new wars. That's a good thing.
That's really important because if you think about it, that's where that's where the lives really get lost. It's not with the federal government raising some tax. That's bad. It does cost lives, but the life cost is in the wars they've started. How many wars did Obama start? So I don't know. I just can't. I don't like Trump at all, but at least he stabbed me in the front, and he didn't wage a bunch of foreign wars.
Yeah, I like I said, I have no point taken. I have no problem with that. The only thing I would add, though, is he did, as far as coronavirus goes, Trump did declare himself a wartime president and said that we were fighting, we were at war in effect with an invisible enemy. Which I agreed with, and I had no problem with that rhetoric. And then, ultimately he got kind of bored with the whole thing and just kind of shrugged and said, well, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. What do I care? It's not like I'm going to actually be any kind of a leader on this in the long term. But for a couple weeks there, he seemed like he was pretty into it. So no new deaths in terms of foreign policy under Trump necessarily. Although the way we pulled out of Syria was so clunky that you might be able to. We won't get into that, but as far as COVID goes, I actually think he's got a lot of blood on his hands. I think Trump is responsible for the death of many American citizens.
Maybe, but anyway, I called to talk about a solution rather than to complain about imperial government that I can't control.
Okay. Solution to what?
So a solution to the governmental problems that we have at any level, really.
Yeah.
And it's actually something that happened in Maine. Apparently, to some extent, Maine has instituted this thing called approval voting. Do you know what that is?
I know they have ranked choice voting in Maine. I don't know what approval voting is. This is new to me.
Actually, it might be ranked choice. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
One of the two. Yeah. And so now I'm not the best person to get a definition from, but basically they're all different. People always say, well, you can't have, anarchy. We can't have to choose between this federal system and anarchy. It's like there's no other two things that you could possibly have except maybe dictatorship, right? And in any computer game that you play that has countries, the countries are either dictatorships or monarchies or democracies or republics, right? Everything is like there's no other possible option, right?
Yeah, people.
But, one solution is, the reason we have people like Hillary and Trump to pick from is because of this winner-take-all thing. When you can't, and the negatives of a person don't really, you can't use them you can't use their negatives against them as a candidate very effectively. So with ranked approval or with approval voting, I think is what it was. Like the Free State Project, when it voted on which state to pick that we were going to move to, we picked New Hampshire, but we ranked all 10 states that were up for election. All the 10 almost all the small population states in the U.S. were available to vote for, and you could vote like I voted New Hampshire number 1, Wyoming number 2, Idaho number 3, and so forth. So Idaho got a little bit of my support, and New Hampshire got a lot, and Wyoming got some, and I put Vermont at the bottom. So Vermont got, like, my negative feeling about picking Vermont was heavily represented in my vote. Does that make sense? So the same way, like you could have a national election where you had Trump at the top, had Trump and then 9 other candidates. And, like if you really didn't like Trump, you put him number 10 and then maybe you put Justin Amash in the middle if you thought he was okay. And you put Hillary at the top if you thought she was awesome or something like that. And that way the negatives to Trump would have really affected him a lot more than they did.
Yeah. That's why they call it ranked choice. Yeah, you're effectively ranking the candidates from best to worst in your estimation. Yeah.
So if we had a democracy, that's kind of what it would look like. This isn't really a democracy. It's more like it's more like the Iranian system in a sense, where you have these sort of two anointed candidates that are anointed by the establishment. You get to pick from them, and they're slightly different from each other. And that's not really a democracy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Now so you're in favor of this, obviously. Well,
it's one of 10 or 20 solutions that could be applied to the kinds of problems we have. The problem is these are never applied anywhere in terms of governments, like nation-state governments, because every square inch of the earth is now dominated by one of these awful things, a nation-state government.
Are there any other states? Do you know offhand if any other states other than Maine are doing this?
And I should correct myself. Every square inch of habitable land is what I should have said.
No.
But anyway,
fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the other states are doing it.
I was curious because I know the last time I had looked at something about this, I know that at one point there were other states that were looking at it, but I don't recall that any other states had decided to adopt this. There are arguments against it that I don't fully understand. To me, it seems like a perfectly logical way to do things, actually, but I know that there are arguments against it, but I've never really gotten that deep into the issue. But I assume Maine is the only one doing it. But they seem pretty happy with it, right? Mainers seem pretty happy with this system, as far as I can tell.
it could wind up being decisive depending on how extensively they use it. It could start making, in theory, Maine could start pulling ahead of New Hampshire in terms of, open society and freedom and so forth, because people don't want to have 40,000 pages of state law that they have to live under. They don't want to have an additional 200,000 plus pages of federal law that they have to follow every day. No one can do it. No one wants that. But the system is designed, to self-perpetuate and get bigger.
Yeah, I know. Government's good at making laws, but not good at repealing them. And there's so many. I've thought about doing a segment like this, but I never have, because it wouldn't be very original, because there's other shows that have done this idea already. But these segments on political shows about laws that are outdated, and it's actually incredible. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you know this already, but if you dig into it, every state in the country has all these outdated laws, some of which are extremely bizarre. And but what happens is, of course, they get kind of forgotten about. They never actually get repealed. They just get forgotten about and ignored, and then no one pays attention to them. And and we end up with laws on top of laws on top of laws, most of which are useless. But there's a New Hampshire state rep, Carol McGuire, either out of Epsom or Epping. I can't remember. I think it's Epping. I know Carol. Yeah.
So she created a bill that was like a package of repeals all in one bill to try and get rid of outdated laws. I think she may have had some progress with that.
Really?
But that's what. So that's cool, but I think there was at least some pushback. An initial attempt to get that through failed, and that's what I went ahead and started my civil disobedience campaign over that bill back in 2009. So I was doing illegal puppet shows.
What? Go on.
So I was the outlaw puppeteer. So I'd go from town to town, and it was illegal to conduct a puppet show in New Hampshire for money.
Really?
Without a license.
Really?
So
wow.
This is 19th century law. So I would just go from government place to government place and break that law. They never did want to arrest me for it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. And that's why these laws never do come off the books, because everyone just wants to. It's easier to ignore them than to repeal them, I guess. But that's funny. I didn't know that you did that. That's awesome. Oh boy. Well, Dave, we are rapidly running out of time, my friend, but always nice to hear from you. And please give the Ridley Report a plug before you go.
RidleyReport.com. It's the place that favors, I don't know, something different from the kind of government we have.
There you go. Not your most confident plug that you've ever done, but we'll take it. All right, Dave. All right. Thank you for the call, my friend. Be safe.
Uh-huh.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, Dave Ridley from the Ridley Report. Rob Dion in the Facebook live chat, not a fan of Mr. Ridley. I like Dave. Certainly disagree with him on some things, but I enjoy talking with him. But he and Jenny really got into it yesterday. That's always fun, too. Rob, of course, part of the WMNH family, host of Through the Stage Door, one of our great shows here on the station, and the entertainment reporter on the morning show with Peter White. Rob is typically on Thursday mornings doing his entertainment report, and he brings in his keyboard and performs live, and they do Name That Tune. It's a lot of fun. Tom Blanchard says it's illegal to spit on the sidewalk on Sunday. Yes, well, that is the Lord's day, and on what day did the Lord make saliva? I don't think that's even addressed. So there you go. That should be illegal, I dare say. Rob says favors all the best conspiracy theories. Who, Dave? No, I don't think Dave's a conspiracy theorist. But Dave's a libertarian. He's not like a Trumpian Republican, or as we call them now, just Republicans. Let's see. Did I miss anybody in the chat room? We are almost out of time. I've enjoyed. Rob liked when I the Lord and Savior, my Lord and Savior line. I do believe that eventually, if Trump runs for president in 2024 and wins, I do believe he will issue an executive order that we all must address him that way. Hello to Anthony Tone Payton in the Facebook live chat. Hello, sir. Good to see you in there. We are almost out of time. Do we have time to get to was there anything else that I really, really wanted to make sure we got to? Probably, just quickly. Yeah, I knew there was just a quick thing. Raw Story is reporting that GOP's Boebert. Well, here, let me just read this to you quickly. Trump-loving Representative Lauren Boebert, Republican of Colorado, on Tuesday was quickly drowned in mockery after she endorsed a false claim by Fox News host Tucker Carlson about windmills being to blame for power outages across the state of Texas. Boy, these Republicans, they hate windmills. Trump claims they cause cancer. Writing on Twitter, Boebert, is it Boebert or is it Boebert? We'll go with Boebert, approvingly shared a video clip of Carlson blaming frozen wind turbines for the power outages, despite the fact that the outages were caused by a combination of a spike in demand and outages at energy plants that use multiple sources of energy, not just wind. She tweeted this. It takes a special kind of stupidity to run out of energy in Texas. Tucker Carlson does a great job here of exposing the green energy scam and how bad policy hurts people, unquote. Far from being a scam, wind energy has been a major success for Texas and in recent years has been responsible for generating around 20% of all electricity produced in the state. Now, the problem for Texas is they're not used to winter weather. That's all it is. Let's see. All right, we'll grab this call quickly. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hello, Matt. It's Paulie C.
Paulie C. from Retro Spectrum Radio with Paulie C. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine. I just want to point out that I'm not a member of the Republican Party, not a member of the Democratic Party. I'm not a member of the useless Libertarian Party.
Come on, man.
I am a member of the Dance Party. And this Friday night on Retro Spectrum, we'll be dancing to the finest alternative rock and roll.
Wow. All right. Will we be actually dancing? Because I think I'm legally prohibited from that.
I got a couple of club versions of Nirvana and Rob Zombie.
Ooh.
So you and I and Dan will be discoing on down this Friday night.
Paul, do you remember Eddie Murphy's impression of how white people dance?
Yes, I do, actually.
That's exactly how I dance.
I'm looking forward to that.
Don't look forward to it. I'll do it, but don't look forward to it. You'll be
between
saddened.
You and Dan, white guy dancing, my night will be complete when I watch that.
It is the whitest of white guy dancing when I dance, Paul. Just be prepared for that. just understand.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, okay.
I've been DJing weddings for 30 years, dude. I'm very familiar with the white guy dance, and I'm looking forward to my good friend Matt to be doing it.
All right. Well, there you go. That's you got it. It's on.
All right, handsome. Thank you so much, Retro Spectrum Radio. Me and this lovely man, Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Paul. Looking forward to it. See you then. Take care. All right, Retro Spectrum Radio with Paulie C. every Friday night. Oh, yes. Yes. We always have a great time on Friday nights. And, of course, if you don't get to hear the show live, all the shows, not only do they replay, but all the shows are archived at WMNHradio.org. And make sure you're back here tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. for the morning show with Peter White. Welcome back, Peter. He is he's doing well. He's feeling great. I assume he's feeling great. I hope he's feeling great. I shouldn't assume anything. And if you miss any part of today's show here, this will be up on WMNHradio.org in just a little bit. And then we'll be back live tomorrow afternoon. But yes, don't be afraid of wind energy. Green energy, it is the future. And will actually create a lot of jobs. Jenny says leather pants or no go, Maddie. I do have, if you're interested in seeing pictures of me in leather pants, if you can find my MySpace page, which does still exist. Did you know, for those of you who remember my MySpace, some of you youngins are probably like, what's he even talking about? MySpace? What's this? It's virtually impossible to get rid of a MySpace account. Once there is a MySpace account that exists with pictures of you on it, good luck getting rid of it. If for some reason, like Facebook, you can delete your Facebook page, you can hide it, whatever. But with MySpace, it's like it's there forever. Forever. All right. It's a permanent record. That's it for us for now. I'll talk to y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.